Hello everyone, welcome back to the French Connections HCB YouTube channel. Today we're going to hear from the lovely James about his move from the southeast of England over to the southwest of France. If you like it, please like it. If you would like to subscribe, please click the subscribe button. And if you want to leave a comment, please do drop one in the box below. I will look forward to hearing from you. I hope you enjoy. Hi James, how are you doing today?
Hello, not too bad. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. Thank you so much for joining us and giving up your time to have a bit of a chat.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for
Good.
inviting me.
No
Yeah.
problem. Love your background. I've just asked you about it, but it's nearby where you
Mhm.
live, right?
It is, yes. It's about 30 minutes away. It's near a village where we'll be moving to. There's
Oh,
a field outside, pretty much outside the house. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, lovely. Lots of space.
Mhm.
That's what we need. That's what we love.
Exactly.
Okie dokie. So, the premise of this, we talk a little bit about your time in France, getting to
Mhm.
France, and how French Connections HCB helped you get there. But let's
Yeah.
start a little bit about where you now call home. So, if you're happy to share a little bit about that and your move to France and what made you make that move, I think that'd be a really good start.
Okay. So currently we are in the Lot-et-Garonne, which is in a small village, 20 minutes from Bergerac.
Mhm.
um, and it's in the wine region. And the reason we ended up here is that it was a holiday home for some years. We got it back in 2006. It was a holiday home,
Mhm.
and over the years, ummed and ahed about coming to France. And recently, things fell into place, and it was the right time to move.
Brilliant. And how did you find the actual place that you now call home, and where is that? What is that called? Your village?
The village is called Castellones, which is, as I said, 20 minutes from Bergerac and 20 minutes from Villeneuve-sur-Lot.
Mhm.
It is not one of the busiest bastide villages in this region, but it is a bastide village. And it's a small community, and yet it has everything from a cinema, a bank, a post office,
Mhm.
an elementary school, as well as I think they call it a college, but it's like a
Ah,
secondary school.
it's a
So
school, yeah.
for a
Perfect.
small village, it's got quite a lot of facilities, which is quite amazing.
It is amazing, isn't it, to have all that stuff on your doorstep in such a lovely part of the world as well. And with your current property, you're just about to say you're about to move, but with your current property, was it love at first sight when you saw it?
It was, yes. Actually, we had initially a smaller house in the same village, and this one came up for sale. It was larger. It had a little courtyard, which the other one didn't. And so, foolishly or wisely, we bought it.
Yeah, wisely, I would say. Wisely, I would definitely say.
Yeah.
And so take me back to when you were in the UK previously. You lived in the southeast of England,
Mhm.
and you were commuting into London, as we've talked about already.
Yeah.
Um, how has your life changed since moving out to France? Talk to me about that.
It's changed a great deal in terms of work. I mean, when I was in the UK, first I was living in Surrey and commuting from Surrey, from Guildford into London,
Mhm.
and then moved to East Sussex and commuting from Tunbridge Wells into London. And the whole commute was 2 to 2.5 hours. And it's a busy commute. Sometimes it rains between the station and the car park.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas, whereas here it's very different. I mean, it still rains. I mean, it has rained a lot more this year than most years in France. So the locals tell me.
Yeah.
But it's a much slower pace. The traffic is non-existent.
Mhm.
The pace is much slower. There are markets around, and it feels much more peaceful. And even if you're working long days, the fact that you can be outside and have this tranquility around you makes a huge difference to how you feel about things.
So the move has really had a big impact on the quality of the balance of your life by the sounds of it.
Yes, yes, it has. I certainly do not miss the commute, that's for sure.
Right. And how long has it been since you actually made the full-time move to France?
We moved back in September, So it's nearly coming up to a year since
Oh,
since
so you're really settled in now.
yeah,
Excellent. And
getting there slowly.
you're getting there. Yeah. Takes
Yes.
time. It takes time. And what was the most exciting part of packing up your life and moving to France?
Oh, that part was quite it was quite stressful because you've
Oh.
got the ongoing demands of work,
Mm.
trying to understand the process of moving, trying to find people who can help with the move, especially in terms of packing up and transporting us to France. And in the end, I got tired of the whole thing and decided I'm going to move myself, I'm going to hire a van and do it in 4 loads. And so I suppose to answer the question, the most exciting part was having that first load in the van and getting to New Haven at 11 p.m. to cross. I think that was
Amazing.
it's
And it was
finally
when you realized it was happening, it was real, it was all going to be worth it.
exactly, exactly. And can I drive this van without crashing it?
Yeah, yeah, get your driving practice in before you jump in one of
Yeah.
those for sure. So you remote work from France, but that
Mhm.
also involves a lot of travel, as the companies that you work for are all outside of France. So how do
Mhm.
you find needing to travel globally for the work that you do?
Initially, when I was thinking about it, it seemed daunting because from this region, you've got two choices, either Bordeaux, three choices, Bordeaux, Toulouse, or Paris.
Mhm.
And it's a 2 hour drive to Bordeaux and a 2 hour drive to Toulouse. But actually, when I really thought about it, door to door going to Heathrow sometimes did take an hour and a half, an hour, 45 minutes. So in the same 2 hours, I'm covering much greater distance,
Mhm.
although it feels long. It's about the same. So
There's not actually that much
no,
difference. So it's
no,
actually comparable, but you've got this amazing balance when you actually get home.
exactly. And it's a pleasant drive actually to
Mhm.
drive to Bordeaux through the villages or to drive to Toulouse through the villages.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, and so apart from that additional 2 hours, you can get Toulouse to Gatwick and then on to the US, so you can get from Toulouse to Paris, or you can get the train from Bergerac to Bordeaux, then to Paris. You'll be in Paris in just over 4 hours, which is quite amazing for
that's
600 kilometers.
amazing, isn't it? For such a big country as well, for
Yeah.
sure. So talk to me a little bit about, so talk about how you got there, and kind of what you do right now you are there. What motivated you to reach out to French Connections HCB for a bit of help?
Right, I'd been receiving their emails. I can't remember how I started receiving their emails, just for now doing some research
Mhm.
a year before the actual move. And then one of the emails talked about them coming to London on I think it was Place in the Sun or something.
Brilliant.
So went there, met a few exhibitors, asked a few questions, and ended up talking to HCB. And then I had a call with Richard. He came across as quite honest, quite knowledgeable. He was very transparent, not afraid to say what he didn't know, what he wasn't unsure about, and it made me feel, very comfortable about the process. In understanding that the process is quite lengthy and there are quite a lot of administrative hoops you have to jump through. And B, I understood I didn't have the time to do all of that. And I
Mhm.
needed people who have done this before,
Mhm.
who could guide me through it, especially with the visa, which was the first step.
So what services did you use via French Connections HCB?
We use them for applying for the visa, for the health system registration, for the driving license changeover,
Mhm.
the residence permit, and
Mhm.
the car registration as well.
Brilliant.
Uh, because as I said, there just isn't time to do. And I'm glad we did. Just looked at the whole thing as part of the cost of the budget for moving.
Mhm.
And I had saved on transportation. It was going to cost
You
thousands.
did it yourself. Very well
Exactly.
done. There's a tip.
Um, yeah. And yes, and as I've been here, I've heard other people talk about how difficult it's been for them. And to be honest, mine has so far, fingers crossed, been
Mhm.
a breeze.
So you felt that the team back at the ranch, as it were, really helped make your transition an awful lot go an awful lot more smoothly than other people's that you're aware of?
They have, yes.
Mm.
But it's also quite important. One of the things I have learned is that as a client, sometimes you tend to believe that you are the only client. And actually they're looking after lots of other people. So it's also quite important if you're working with them to keep on top of the schedule
Mhm.
and remind them of what's coming up so they can tell you what you need. Because very
Sure.
often there's some new documents that are required, or you have to send the same documents you've shared before again and again. And sometimes they get lost. You have to do it again. And so, you also have to be ready because if you don't, when they call you and say, I
Mm.
need your birth certificate,
Mhm.
you don't know which box it's in. So,
Yeah, especially when you're mid-move.
exactly. Yeah.
That's really good.
So,
And that's a really good point because it is a bit of a two-way street, isn't it? Working with people that are helping you with such an important part of your life. Like you said,
mm,
you have to be ready and available when they need information from you. So that's actually a really valuable piece of information for anybody else thinking about doing this, I think.
yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes they do ask for documents that you haven't seen for years.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. And
you know,
you really don't know where they are, or if you have a
yeah.
copy, full stop.
Exactly. So I had to get the birth certificate, or marriage certificate. You have to get it from the UK, and then it has to be translated. And that's another thing. I didn't have to worry about translation because they were dealing with it. If I was dealing with it myself, that's
Mm.
another thing you have to consider. You need to find
True.
somebody to translate some documents.
Yeah, very true, very true, very good point. So do you think that was one of the most challenging aspects of it? Was that the one of the things that you were looking least forward to?
What the finding documents? Or
The administration sort of side of
yes,
it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. The administration. And one of the most challenging parts of the whole thing was actually the vehicle, because I brought in my car from the UK,
Mm.
and although it had the right lights, um, the person who was doing the testing said it had the wrong lights, and I was suddenly looking at a £5,000 bill to change the lights, and that
Oh.
whole process of communicating with Toyota,
Mm.
the uh, uh, the control technique people with
Mhm.
Lexus in the UK, that took a while, and that was quite daunting because the insurance only covers you up to a point, and you have to be in the registration process.
Of
So
course, you do.
checking that is also another thing I would say to people.
Really
Uh,
important.
Make sure your car is compliant
Yeah, yeah, make sure
because
your
even when
car
it
is
is, it's still
compliant and
it's
you
still a problem.
personally are compliant. Yes, we must comply for sure.
Yeah.
So the team at French Connections is works really hard to make it so that it is a much easier process. How did you
Yeah.
find working with the team? You said you've got to be available and you've got to have the stuff ready. How did you
Yeah.
find that relationship with the team?
I found it worked quite well for me. I mean, one of the things to remember is that for each process, you might have a different person.
Mhm.
Um, but they send quite detailed emails, and it is important to read them because they are very detailed about what they require when they need it. And yes, I mean I must say I haven't had any issues. I found the whole process quite smooth, and as I said, when I listen to other people, I'm quite lucky that I did use HCB.
Really good.
Um,
Good to know. And let's take it back then to talking about where you live. What do you love the most about the actual area? Because I know you said you're moving, but you're staying within the same area. Is that correct? So this
yes,
is
that's
the same area that you've had your holiday home for 20 years or so.
yeah.
So you're now going to call home, which you now call home full time. Tell me about the area in which you live. What do you love about it?
I love the fact that it's so varied, and the fact that there's so many. There are all these fortified villages along this region,
Mm.
and they're all very different. They're all very tranquil, um, and they all have different things happening in each village. Every day of the week, there's a market in another village,
Mhm.
and if you had the time, you could go to a different market every day, basically. Um, I love the fact that the pace is slower. I love the fact that um, people go to the market to buy what they need for today and tomorrow, and not for the whole month.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just varied from being mountainous to the valleys to the wine region to the areas that have full of prunes.
Mm.
So yeah, it's it's an easy place to be.
Yeah, it
It's a
sounds
relaxing.
idyllic. It sounds idyllic. And what are some of your favorite areas surrounding you? Have you managed to travel around much?
Yes, we traveled to Nice and back, and Bordeaux and back, Arcachon.
Mhm.
Um, explored some of the villages around here from Brive all the way along the 8, 9 towards Bordeaux.
Mhm.
I've driven to Geneva. It's quite easy from here as well.
Oh, lovely.
But probably the best, the background that you have behind you reminds me of one of the best experiences I've had, which is canoeing down the Dordogne and passing villages like La Roque-Gageac, which are just amazing.
Mhm.
And I say canoeing, it's one of those lazy trips where if you do nothing, you still move at 2 kilometers per hour. So it's not hard work.
That's good. It's great.
You
You
can
can
do it
get
the whole day and stop at different villages.
about. Yeah, lovely. And if you had a visitor, for example, I'm not inviting myself, but if you had a visitor and you were to take them to somewhere that perfectly encapsulates what you love about the place, where would you take them? Would it be a restaurant or a park or just a long walk somewhere?
I'd probably take them to a couple of in this the ones that are more immediate. There's the Chateau Montbazillac, which is not too far from here. They have Montbazillac wine, which is a sweet wine. It's a lovely small little chateau.
Mhm.
If they're really into wine, they could go to the Chateau Duras, which is another one, not
Mhm.
far from here again. And Montpazier is a beautiful village, one of the best bastide villages in terms of being having the center being complete. Absolutely beautiful, and Villarreal. So yeah, there's so much. It depends what they're interested in. There's
You are
something.
spoiled for choice, aren't you? You absolutely are spoiled for choice. I'm jealous. I may well invite myself just to come over and have a little bit of mooch
Come
around.
over.
It sounds wonderful. Um, have you found it easy to settle going from a holiday home? Have you found it easy to settle
Mhm.
as home in your area?
One of the things that there is a difference between being on holiday and being here. And one of the things for us has been the fact that, being in the middle of the village was great as a holiday. It is
Mhm.
not great to live here because suddenly the noise from the bar, the noise from the market being set up, the vehicles moving around, people talking in the street when you're trying to work, it's
Mhm.
not ideal for us. So we're moving out of the village.
Sure.
So, there are some things that you only find out when you're actually living in the place 24/7, which is
Mhm.
quite different from when you're just visiting on holiday. So people might find that they might have to move
Yeah.
either into a village or outside the village because it depends what you want.
And that's another thing, isn't it? It's not to be fearful. Don't necessarily go out and think the first house is going to be your forever home. Think your
Mm.
needs might change, the things that you're looking for might change. And it is definitely possible to move once you're there. It doesn't have to be your forever home, does it?
No, absolutely. And one of the things that Richard mentioned when I first had the call with him, before he realized I did have a holiday home, he said one of the options would be that you rent for a year and see if you like the area, because it might be that by touring around, you might find that actually you prefer another area. So you don't have to commit at the outset. You can rent for a year and see how it goes.
Which is again another really good point. And that's something that a lot of our clients choose to do just while they get to navigate the area and figure out exactly what they're after, especially when they're coming from distance. I think it's really important to
Mm,
experience it without the pressure, maybe, of having to make a decision of where to live.
exactly. And also you might find a house that is the best house for you that you've ever seen, fall in love with. But like, the house we're moving to next is 10 minutes from the nearest boulangerie.
Mhm.
Is that okay? For us, it's okay for the time being. It might not be okay in 5 years' time, but it is okay for the time.
Yeah,
But there are things like that as well. Where's the
completely
nearest
agree.
doctor? Things
Yeah,
like
where's the nearest doctor? If you have a pet, is there a vet? How close
yeah,
can everybody be? Where's the nearest bar is normally quite I want to be able to
yeah,
walk to a bar is
yeah,
very common. Um,
exactly.
and if there was something that you wish you'd known before making the move, what would that be? Do you have any little nuggets of advice that you think I wish I'd known that before I moved?
It's one that can't be corrected. I wish I'd known that I could move before Brexit rules changed, because it was much easier to do
Wasn't
than
it?
and after that deadline. So I wish I'd known that.
Yeah.
Um, I think maybe one of the things I would say to somebody is try and learn as much as you can. There are some groups on Facebook like Strictly Legal,
Mhm.
Strictly Sante. There's another one called Strictly Fiscal, which is all about taxes. There's
Mhm.
one for car registration. Just join those groups, ask questions. The people there are very, very useful. Any question, there isn't a stupid question, they will try and answer it for you. So, get into those groups and ask as many questions as you'd like. And people, to give you a
And
flavor of
yeah, exactly. And they're expat groups as well, aren't they? So they're talking to
yeah.
sort of like the English speaking communities that are sort of moving
Exactly. There are
across.
expert groups, and then there are some non-expert groups like renovation groups and so on.
Mm,
Um, Actually, one of the things that I would say to people, it's absolutely important when you do come here and you want to renovate your house. If you are thinking of selling that house in the future, be very careful about which tradespeople you use, because it affects the insurance, and that's quite important.
mm,
So, people get caught out with, I use people from the UK to do my roof, and then it's not hasn't got the insurance for the next 10 years. How do you sell that house? So, you know,
mm. So true.
follow the process.
Follow the
Follow
process. Yeah, dive in fully.
yeah.
And how have you found the language? Because when we spoke the other day, I understand
Mhm.
that you speak 5 languages, which is marvelous. How have you found picking up French?
It's slow going. I found that actually I'm trying to immerse myself as much as I can. I've started having weekly classes, which are physical classes in a group of 8. And I've also got an audio course that I'm doing. So yeah, it's getting there. I can understand more than I can speak, but it's getting there. And they're different accents as well. So
It's
it's
all part of the process, isn't it? You do
part
need
of the
to
process.
understand and then
Yeah.
dive
Uh,
into it.
yeah.
But you're
So
finding that
but
people that you speak to are very, very helpful when you do try. That's what most people that I speak to say. If you give it a go, they're willing to help as well and guide you along.
yeah, absolutely. I always start by explaining to them that I can't speak very well, and I say that in French, and usually sometimes they test you out. I mean, I went to the ophthalmologist the other day. I did the same thing. We went, 15 minutes of me trying my best to understand what was being said to me, and me trying to speak.
Mhm.
And then after 20 minutes, she said, "Would you like me to speak in English?" And I said, "Well, no, let's carry on." But if I
Excellent.
do fail,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she really appreciated that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's you know, we have to be like kids. When a child stands up and takes a step and stumbles, they just get up again. But as
Mhm.
adults, we think, "Oh, they've seen me fall, and I'm not doing
Mhm.
it again." And
Yeah.
we just have to have that freedom to, failing is learning. So that's my approach.
That is so true. That is very true. And I think that's a really good way to go into it as well, is it's okay if you don't get it quite perfect all the time. Doesn't work so well with people with sort of a perfectionist personality, but if you can try and talk to everybody, give it a bit of a
Yeah,
go, it works wonders.
absolutely. I mean, who speaks in perfect English all the time anyway? So,
I certainly don't. As I'm sure people who've been watching some of these interviews have already found out. I certainly don't, not a chance.
yeah.
And if you were to do it again, would you have rented first, like you said, as your one good piece of advice, or do you
Mm.
think it's still quite possible to dive straight into a purchase? How did you find the house purchasing experience?
It's much easier than, we had to sell a house in the UK to move here. That was more stressful than buying a house. The house purchase experience is easier. The process is detailed. It's quite amazing that you're using the same notaire or solicitor, buyer and seller. We signed on the house that we're getting, we signed the compromise, the first stage. and we were in the notaire's office for 3 hours because he was explaining every single line and making sure that, you know, both sides understood. And he even added clauses that we knew nothing about, which actually ended up protecting us as buyers, because the seller was trying to get planning permission on another property. And the notaire said, well, you've got so many weeks. If you don't sign, they have the ability to pull out. So that was something that worked for us, which was amazing because he's been that seller's notaire for a number of years. But so
it just proves the balance, doesn't it, in the system? I think that's one thing that people maybe don't realise. It is a different system, but it is a very balanced system for sure. Very equal.
And you know, and there isn't this gazumping stuff in the middle of it that we experience in the UK.
The worst.
It's straightforward.
The worst. Yeah. Yeah. And is there anything you miss about living in the UK?
Not yet. Not yet, because
it's the right answer.
it's not that far away. You know, there's a flight from Bergerac into London City Airport.
Yeah.
The flight into the Midlands, Southampton. It still feels like it's just, you know, it's 2 hours away. So
it's a couple of hours.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the other side of the world, is it? Not for UK residents, obviously.
Yes. Yeah,
awesome.
It's not so far away. And, you know, for those who are inclined to miss tea and things like that, there are little Brit sections in some supermarkets.
Oh, good Lord. I'm almost kind of embarrassed. But I shouldn't be, because I do love my tea.
And around here, you can also get the fish and chip van comes on Fridays to some village.
That's very fun. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
All the taste from home.
It does. There's a village down the road called Ame, and over there they've got everything.
That's brilliant.
Everything you want. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, James. Thank you so much for your time and for having a chat with us today. Hopefully everyone that's been listening has seen a bit of their own will to get to France in your story, and you've given some really good advice. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. It's an adventure. I know life is there to be lived, so it's an adventure. Try it out and see how it goes. I mean, we might be here 2 years and then we might think it's not working. I don't know. It's possible, but at least
take it a day at a time. Take it a day at a time and enjoy it while you're there. It sounds like you're having the best time. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to hear more from French Connections HCB, like I said before, you can like and subscribe to the channel, which would be great, or get in touch at frenchconnectionshcb.com.